and we wish them luck with that, because it's a big, big thing, there's no doubt about it. Now, it's quite extraordinary that Ben Kingsley was on earlier on talking about Bugsy and the Mafia and so on. And he had to go. He really had another appointment, which is a pity, because he might have had something to say about this. On the other hand, he might not. Because our next guest is the godson and the nephew of the man who was one of the most ruthless and feared mafia bosses in Chicago for many years. The mafia infiltrated all sections of society in America and all strata of society, right to the very top, including several presidents. And they ran America. And they made millions of money, as you know. They were ruthless, brutal people to other people and indeed to their own if they were ever crossed by their own. This man, as I say, is the godson and the nephew of Sam Giancana, who was one of the most feared of the mafia bosses in America. He was the boss man in Chicago. And this man has written a book about the mafia, which is called Double Cross. It's the story of the man who controlled America. And it's described as the most important mafia document ever published. It blows the whole gaff on the way they operated and who they were and what they did. And of course, they started way back in Prohibition and went on from there. And this book is causing a huge stir in America at the moment, and indeed around the rest of the world. Would you welcome, please, he's the godson and the nephew of Sam Giancana, and unfortunately for his sins, he shares his name, though he would wish otherwise. Would you welcome, please, Sam Giancana. Now, I know eventually, Sam, you changed your name to what?
Well, actually, I haven't told anybody yet.
Oh, why not?
Well, it's just never found it necessary.
I see. So you go on calling yourself Sam Giancana, then?
No, I do go by another name.
Okay. Now, before we get into it, one reservation I have about the book, and it intrigues me. Why would Sam Giancana, as the mafia boss, have told so many secrets about the mafia to your father, Chuck, his brother, when all through the book you make the point again and again that Chuck was clean, legitimate, wanted to know nothing about the mafia or gangsterism?
Well, my father really looked up to his brother for many, many years. As a young boy, he actually witnessed his brother murder a man right in front of his eyes. And as a result, he was so fearful of his brother, didn't say a word to the police. And that started a relationship very early on that Mooney, Sam Giancana, really started to trust Chuck. And over the years, my father did work for him in various capacities. And there was a bond there. And the fact that Sam didn't tell other people didn't negate the fact that he did feel comfortable talking to his own brother. And that's where really it really began.
Lest you're confused, Sam Giancana was also known as Mooney. It was a middle name which he got in early childhood. Now, seeing the movie about Bugsy, did you see Bugsy, by the way?
I haven't seen the movie, but I love that clip because we remember hearing about that particular incident. My uncle was actually there in Cuba.
In Cuba?
Yes.
Deciding about Bugsy Siegel.
Well, he was at that time kind of an underboss, and he accompanied the other men from Chicago and actually witnessed that conversation. And ultimately, the contract to kill Bugsy Siegel went through Chicago. And what we were told was that 2 men from Chicago actually went to Los Angeles to kill Bugsy Siegel.
Why do they hate Bobby Kennedy so much?
Well, actually, I think a lot of people have tried to get their arms around that. And I think once we understand that Sam Giancana saw the opportunity for a business relationship with Jack Kennedy specifically. In 1956, Joe Kennedy, the father, came to Chicago to try to get a contract removed on his life. That contract was placed by Frank Costello, which many of the people may know was a powerful man in New York. He put a contract on Joe Kennedy because Joe Kennedy wouldn't act in some kind of business partnership with him. As a result, Joe Kennedy realized that Sam Giancana at that time was really the only high-ranking man who can get this called off. He came to Chicago, and Sam at the time said, okay, I'll do this, but what's in it for me? And he said, well, if my son becomes president, if Jack becomes president, you'll have the ear of the president. So at that point, Sam felt he had a promise, and as a result, he actively organized crime to really support the Kennedys. And then ultimately, when Jack was elected, and then put Bobby...
He squared a lot of the voting for him and all of that, yes.
He actually, Jack then put Bobby Kennedy in as Attorney General, and everyone knew that Bobby Kennedy wasn't going to lay down on organized crime. He was fighting that vehemently, and at that point, Sam Giancana and the rest of the organized crime realized that they either had been double-crossed and therefore they really hated the circumstances.